Welcome back, my nomads. Welcome back to another Bitcast. It's your boy, and I'm here again with Zach. How you doing, Zach?
Doing good, man. How's your week going? Anything good happen?
Uh, Not really. Same old, same old. Uh, yeah, nothing really going on.
You gotta tell the world of your upgrade. I never thought I would see the day.
Oh, how I went from being a Sony man to an Xbox man.
It took a lot of work. And imagine me being like a Jehovah's Witness and just telling my friends about the benefits of being a Jehovah's Witness for years. And you finally went on this side. I'm not a Jehovah's Witness, but I'm using it as an
Yeah, I
example.
know. We gotta let the people know he's not Jehovah's Witness people. But yeah, I mean, I was a Sony man my whole life. Well, as soon as the PlayStation 1 came in the scene. But I'm just looking at Xbox and Sony PlayStation together. Xbox just seems like it's for the consumer, for the gamer, whereas PlayStation just seems like they're just trying to make money. I mean, throw stones at me if you want, but I got my foot in the pond on both of them. I still use my PS4 from time to time. I upgraded it myself, added a new terabyte hard drive, put more thermal paste on the CPU so it's not running hot anymore. Because God of War 2, like it just was hammering at the CPU. But yeah, I'm more of an Xbox guy. I haven't renewed my PlayStation subscription, just my Game Pass subscription. I got that. But yeah, it's just Xbox is more for the consumer for me. They seem to really care what you want. You buy a game on Xbox, whether you buy it on the console or the PC, you got it for both for life. Stuff like that. I can continue a game from my console to my PC to handheld. I can play it on my phone with the same controller. Like, come on, man. You know, come on. It's a no-brainer for me. Once I
Yeah,
learned about it.
yeah, no. I mean, now you're drinking the Kool-Aid. But,
I guess.
the thing I wanted to harp on is that you were so stuck on S, and I've been telling you for the last year and some change, the S is going to be phased out, and now we're starting to see that happen. Very specific games and support going to be on the X only, and it makes a lot of sense, right? Because the S was never meant to be used as it's a supplementary thing
Mm.
for the X, but the X is supposed to be the flagship. That's like everything that you need to have and want and all that stuff, right? Like that's what
Yeah, I
Starfield's
mean,
meant to be run on. That's what all this stuff's meant to be run on.
it's like you said, I had the S at first, the S as in Sam first. But I was a different kind of S owner. Like I was like, y'all can do what y'all want with the flagships. I don't care. I don't think you should delay games just so people like me can have the same games on the S. I'm like, I don't care if I have to wait longer. I think like the pandemic, excuse me, the pandemic changed the trajectory of what the S and the X were supposed to be. I think
Mm-hmm.
because everybody kept buying the S because of availability and because it was the pandemic, Xbox doubled down on it because they had the most affordable next gen console. And so they're like, oh, we're going to double down on this. The S is going to be treated just like the X, and we're going to have all the same games. Da, da, da. And I think it's backfiring. And then I saw two articles last night. I saw one article about how Xbox is caved. They're compromising. They're going to release Baldur's Gate 3 um, before the end of 2023, but they're going to get rid of co-op, split screen co-op for the Series S. And for me, I'm like, I'm a grown man, so I don't play split screen anymore. But so I didn't care. I don't care. And then I saw another article that said for an anime game, Naruto something, you Series X people will be able to like differentiate between X and S and block Series S people so that they won't get stuck online playing 30 FPS with the S people. And I sent those articles to you and I was like, yo, this is the beginning of the end. And you sent me a bunch of articles last year in October to say like, yo, you really should get an X, get rid of the S. And I was like, I don't know, da da da. But then the articles that you sent made good arguments, and Xbox was quiet about it for like 6 months. And that's when I was like, yo, I might want to upgrade because they haven't said anything about these developers saying the S is holding back the X and stuff. So I was like, there might be something to what they're saying. So maybe I should plan to upgrade. So I started saving up over then, and then I upgraded to the X. But yeah, like I don't know optimization because I do video. I know optimization. It it's so easy for us because it's like, oh, you just make the film whatever, and then you downgrade it from 4K to 1080 or 1080 to 720, whatever. But video games is different. You got things running in the background, you got algorithms that's going on. So it's obviously going to be different computing power. So I have no idea how optimization works for games. So I was relying on YouTube videos. I mean, I was watching so many YouTube videos, reading so many forums, and I was like, you know what? I should upgrade. So I did.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I've been an Xbox person forever. I have a PS5 just for very specific exclusives, so I can get, the God of War Ragnarok, and then I can get Final Fantasy 16, and then I can play the Knights of the Old Republic both on the PlayStation and my PC when that happens finally. Stuff like that, right?
I
But I
thought they
don't
canceled
really.
that indefinitely.
Well, on their website, it's still talked about.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but anyway, stuff like that, though. You know what I mean? But if there's a difference, if there's going to be the same game on either console, it's going to be on the Xbox majority of the time. And let's be real, up until recently, Microsoft's been really lagging behind in terms of original IPs that are exclusive to the console only. Now you're getting the first big release in God knows how long, and you're having a meltdown from the other side about, oh, it's not fair. Starfield's exclusive. I'm like, no, it is fair. They dropped $35 billion to buy Bethesda, along with $400 million to produce this thing. They can have it for Xbox people only if they want. You know?
First, first of all, as a PlayStation guy, I'm like, y'all have nothing to stand on. You know
Oh,
how many
there's
exclusives that we've had?
tons. Yeah, tons,
You know how
tons.
many dollars that Sony have spent to make some of these games exclusive?
Yeah,
Period.
yeah.
Like,
Final
just stop.
Fantasies like that. Like you have like Uncharted. You have a lot of different Last of Us. There's a lot of different, IPs that they're just raking on. Spider-Man, come on. I mean,
There were so many IPs that are considered PlayStation exclusives now that were supposed to come out on the Xbox too, but Sony paid to block them. And then Sony was trying to block the Microsoft acquisition with like proof to like, oh, their Xbox is paying to stop exclusives. Xbox like, bro, you've
oh, you
done
talk
that
about
for
Activision.
years.
Well, they got that through finally because they
Yeah,
sold the cloud gaming of Activision to Ubisoft. But we already know where that's going. That's just going to be Ubisoft. It works really hand in hand with Microsoft anyway on a lot of their stuff. So it's who cares? But anyway, point
yeah.
remains the same. It's I'm looking forward to Starfield.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't really had anything this exciting in terms of Microsoft in a long time,
Yeah.
and now it's they delayed it twice. Phil Spencer came under fire, but I think he did the right thing because
Oh
he
yeah.
virtually had everyone who was a QA in Microsoft test this game for the last 8 months to make sure there's hardly any bugs. Granted, when you have a game this big with hundreds of hours of gameplay, there's going to be some bugs, but at least at launch, you're not going to have any for a while, which is good.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they're taking it seriously, and they did the right things to really, this should have came out over a year and a half ago. And now we're
No,
getting
take the
it.
time. Take the time. Yeah.
Oh, if you're spending that kind of money, what's an extra, 40, 50 million of delayed costs just to make sure it's done right? Especially when we
Yeah.
already know this is going to be a hit with, even if it's going on the Game Pass, you're going to have more people buy the Game Pass versus buying the game. And then the microtransactions and the DLC, like they're going to make more than enough to like offset anything.
Yeah, for sure. Now, since we're in the news portion, the topics portion, I want to bring up that man, if you're a Disney fan, buy your favorite movies now because Disney is moving away from the physical media model. So you see how Disney, I think, in the last
Fascinating.
year, huh?
It's fascinating because you know how like they always did the vault ones where they would have specific movies come out put in the vault and they bring it back in like a timeless release type of thing for more money, and that's going to be worth some money.
Well, Disney, you know, obviously. Well, let's say this. Disney, if you're a Disney fan and you don't like the fact that Disney is raising its prices for everything, including Disney Plus, they raised their prices astronomically for Disney Plus twice in 1 year.
How much
And
is it now?
I forgot
I
because I
think I pay
played
like
I
15 bucks for ESPN, Hulu, and that. So it's.
no, Disney Plus now. Oof, I don't feel like looking it up, but I pay the annual. It's hard for me to tell, but they raised their prices twice, and I just saw a thing that said I don't know if it's true. I didn't read the article, but it said Disney feels like they still need to increase their prices. So I'm
Yes.
like, that's interesting. And then they're talking about getting rid of the physical media, which they've done overseas. And I'm like, so now we're doing this kind of like shiesty business where you already had this shiesty business practice of putting your movies in the vault. And there's different versions of movies that we'll never see again because they're in the vault. And now you're going to say, forget the vault. And if you want to see our content, you have to come to our Disney Plus, which honestly, Zach, I don't feel like they've been earning their money lately. Disney Plus for
No.
me hasn't been earning the money lately.
No, I
And
agree.
I mean,
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
go ahead.
it's a lot of it's just predicated on bad business decisions the last 3 or 4 years, and we kind of talked this like earlier this week, last week about what's her name, Rachel Ziegler from Little Mermaid.
Hmm.
Not Little Mermaid. Snow White. She's playing Snow White. Whatever her name is. Is it Rachel
Yes,
Ziegler?
Rachel Zegler. Yeah.
Ziegler. Thank you. And it's just kind of like status quo for like last 3 or 4 movies where they've been absolute flops, spending a ton of money, and people are just
Hmm.
wondering why. It's like, look, I don't know if anyone's paid attention, but she said some very interesting things about Snow White as a story anyway. About she insinuated that Prince Charming was a stalker, and they weren't going to go down this route. And she's just talking about things that are just like personal opinion, regardless if you agree with them or not. But this movie's not going to be out for another like 8 to 10 months, and we're already going to start adding bad press now.
So it still has
And
8 to 10 months to come out, and she's already tanking the promotion
if
for it.
I was Iger, so just to kind of go back, like a lot of people know, like, look, they've made a lot of political statements the last couple of years. Picked a fight with Rod DeSantis for Florida,
Oh
governor
yeah.
who's running for president now, and it's just adding more fuel to the fire in terms of like who's going to win this. And now I feel like a lot of these movies just have some kind of agenda in terms of whatever, social justice, whatever, take your pick, check your box type of message they want to have. And
Hmm.
people just want to hear it. Like they go to the movies. Like the thing is, Disney, you're not tailoring this for the kids. The market audience is the parent because they're the one paying for it. So if
Yep.
you're going to see this and you're going to, and you're going to have your star of Snow White saying some crazy stuff, now if I'm a parent, like there's no way. Like why would I want to support something like that? It makes no sense to me. Regardless if you agree with it. Like sometimes you just go to the movie, just see the movie. Snow White is a very old story anyway. All right. Trying to start changing things around from a cartoon that's almost 100 years old anyway. Like, what are we doing? Like, Iger, I know you're a smart guy. I've read your book. It's a great book. Like, you're definitely like, a, you know what you're doing. If I was him, and I'm going to resonate based on what Patrick Bet David said in his podcast like last week, like I would give Rachel Zeichler a couple $1,000,000, tell her to skedaddle, recast the movie, and push it back in a couple years, and just have everyone keep their mouth shut in terms of what their opinions are, because you're alienating a good portion of the country who's going to go see it anyway. And it's like, why are we doing this? And they
Well,
want to know, and then they have to raise prices in other avenues in terms of Disney Plus and everything to make up the fact that they just spent 200 million on this. Well, now how many people are going to go see it because they're like, oh, here we go again, another one of these Disney movies with some type of agenda attached to it.
yeah, horrible remake of a good movie, which has been all their live action. except for Jungle Book, that was pretty good. But everything else has just been like a horrible remake
Awful.
of great
Lion King,
movies.
Lion King. First
Lion
off,
King
not
was
even
like the
having all
biggest
the original
crime.
like voice actors in there.
Yeah.
Um,
Lion King was like the biggest crime
Aladdin.
out there.
Aladdin
Aladdin,
was bad. All of it
yes.
was bad, dude.
All of it was bad. And yo, so this is what I don't understand. I'm like, why don't they go the Zaslav route, whereas or Zaslav route, where instead of releasing these movies, because a lot of these movies were greenlit under Bob Chapek, why doesn't Iger does the Zaslav move of not releasing these movies, tanking them, and then writing them off as like a tax write off? You know, instead of like we had that horrible, I didn't watch it, but I know it was horrible. The Peter Pan movie, horrible remake that just came out. The Snow White movie that's supposed to come out. Like we have Disney has been having all these bad movies come out that were under the other regime, other president. I'm like, if I was the president, I would do what Zaslav did at HBO and just be like, look, these aren't good for the brand. We're gonna use them as tax write-offs, and they are never going to see the light of day ever again. How about that? Get our money back in taxes and be like, hey, this is what we lost. Get our money back.
I'm curious what your opinion is, right? What do you think? How long do you think they go remaking everything in live action?
How
Like,
long?
how long do you think this will take before they're like, you know what? Maybe it's time just to move on and stop spending because this ain't cheap. They got to get good actors to like draw people in, right?
The problem is the remakes were making money. And then because a lot of people had time on their hands during the pandemic, people were watching these remakes, the new ones that were coming out, and actually watching them, not just watching them as popcorn, actually watching them and then realizing, yo, these are crap.
They
Like
suck.
these are bad. Like the Pinocchio remake I heard was a disaster. Like it was horrible. I saw the Pinocchio movie that came on Netflix, directed by Guillermo del Toro. Amazing. I loved it. It was great. But like people are actually watching these now and they're like, yo, this is bad. This is horrible. So people aren't going to the movies and
Mm-hmm.
buying tickets for these movies anymore. Even not even the remakes, Disney movies, period. I mean, who saw that Elemental movie that came out? Who even watched who even watched the Peter Pan movie that came out on Disney Plus when it was free if you had the subscription?
I
Nobody.
didn't.
Apparently some people saw The Little Mermaid, but I haven't heard anybody like I know people who've seen it and they haven't said anything about it. So that means that it was either bad or it wasn't memorable enough. And like nobody's watching these movies anymore, so they're losing so much money now. So it's not like money talks, but Disney, I don't know, like their money is it's like they're not reading the money anymore, or they're not
Here,
listening to the money anymore. Doesn't make sense.
let's look at something. I'm looking at Disney stock prices the last 5 years.
Hmm.
It's down.
It has to be.
It's down.
Oh, and by the
It's
way,
crazy, right? 5 years ago, $112 per share, 2018, August 31st, right?
hmm
As of right now, it's $83. Dude, 5 years and it's gone down. Like 5 years, like of all the growth and all the acquisitions and all the stuff they've done in terms of Marvel and getting all these Avengers movies in, Star Wars,
I mean, it was
and
just
all of
so
that,
mismanaged. The movies are mismanaged. The theme parks were mismanaged. Like, how during the pandemic do your prices go astronomically high for people who want to visit your park? Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
and you see Netflix at 416 a share. Because let's be real, let's take a couple steps back, right? Disney is a direct competitor on streaming thing. That's where they want to go. That's its whole thing, right? Like
Hmm.
the parks and retail products and all that is a secondary thing. They want to get into the streaming like media, whatever that is. Then you gotta like really compete. Like Netflix was hanging by a thread, and they figured
Oh
it out.
yeah, and they're Disney, like you said, they want to compete, so they're doing what Netflix is doing. Well, did they said they're going to implement that password sharing thing that Netflix did.
Look, when Disney Plus came out, we thought it was a great value. They peaked at $197 a share in 2021. Now, since then, dude, it's been stocks talks, guys. Like, market sees this for what it is. It's not because they don't have value. It's just, it comes down to it. If you don't have profitability and you don't have, especially when there's so much overhead coming from them, like that's not good.
Bro, by the way, Disney Plus when it first came out was like $6 or $7 a month. That was it, period. Now, in the past year, it's only been a year, and they've increased their price twice. So now the ad supported one is $8 a month, and the ad free version is $11 a month. And guess what? In October this year, it goes up to $14 a month. So
Mm.
you're right behind Netflix. And I get it, you got a great library. I won't say anything about that. But what do you have coming out, my friend? I don't see any,
Relying on too much of the Star Wars and Marvel stuff, and
but
50-50,
they've
it's going to be
all
crap or
been
not.
crap lately. They've all been crap. Meanwhile, Netflix just released a trailer for two movies that are coming out that I'm so excited about. Rebel Moon Part 1, Rebel Moon Part 2 by Zack Snyder. And that looks amazing. They're even making Netflix exclusive video games for that franchise that he's doing. And I'm all for it. Sometimes Zack Snyder, his writing is not the best, but his directing is always great, especially when it comes to action scenes. So I am excited for this. And I was going to unsubscribe, and then that trailer came out.
Oh God. No, there's good
And,
content on Netflix.
huh?
There's good content on Netflix.
There is.
Apple TV, I think right now is running supreme.
There is, but $20 a month for 4K on what, two devices on Netflix? Come on, bro. Come on, bro. I don't
It's a
think
lot.
so. I don't think so. So I'm gonna keep it for Rebel Moon, and then when Rebel Moon is done, you're probably out the window, Netflix and Disney. You're right around there too. I'm just gonna buy up all your Blu-rays and wipe my
What'd you
hands
think
of it.
of the Sucker Show, by the way?
So the Ahsoka show. Um, I saw an article today that I agreed with the headline. Ahsoka is good, but it will not save Star Wars.
100%.
I thought it was
It's very good. Ray Stevens, by the way, fantastic bad guy.
R.I.P. bro, R.I.P. But yeah, fantastic casting. Dave Filoni directed the first episode. I was really surprised at Ahsoka episodes 1 and 2 because I'm like, oh, they're actually letting this show breathe. A lot of times with Disney stuff, they got to throw a bunch of stuff at you. They got to throw this action, and someone says something quibby and stuff. I'm like, oh, they're letting these scenes breathe. There's a lot of times where Ahsoka's just walking, contemplating. She's investigating something. I'm like, okay, let's see what's going to happen. But
I can't wait till Anakin shows up.
oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean,
Because here's the thing, like I know you're tired of like the Skywalker saga, but there's
oh
so
yeah.
many good characters like well within this time period that they can harp on and they can be an outlier. Like that's one thing Star Trek's done really well in terms of keeping everything linear. Like Kirk is
Mm-hmm.
just a micro piece, while a huge piece of the entire storyline. And I think now they're starting to figure out, you know what, Darth Vader and the Rebels and all this other stuff. Maybe it's just time to start branching out a little bit. Let's start stretching this timeline out, or at least focus on other characters that have nothing to do with any of that stuff.
I will say one annoying thing about Ahsoka is there's a lot of there's a lot of like, okay, this scene or this fight is over. You may go now. Like I don't like when when TV shows, I can't remember what TV show it was that I recently saw that we both saw, that it's like the main characters always get away or the villain always gets away because the main character lets them get away. Like so many times Ahsoka could have like force pulled somebody and
Oh, it doesn't, yeah. How do you feel about all these tie-ins they're doing? So they got Ezra in there now, all of the Rebels, which is Jon Favreau's baby, pretty much, right? Because he pretty much did that,
Mhm.
and you now have a Cal Kestis Lone Jedi Survivor tie-in now with the Night
Yep.
Sisters and all that. So this is extremely fascinating, and I'm looking forward to seeing Thrawn anyway. I mean, Lars
Hmm.
Mikkelsen's fantastic. I can't wait. But
Yeah.
we're actually going to get a real, honest to God, bona fide villain for the first time in how long with Star Wars?
So I'm of two minds about this. One, I'm like, this is great storytelling. It's going to be great. We're branched, even though it's in the same era. It's a bunch of different characters, right? But two, my other mind is saying we already know what's going to happen. We know the end result. We've seen the sequels. We know what the end is. So why are we putting so much story, so much new story into the middle when we know where it's going to end?
Well, it's just one faction, right? Like the First Order is just a faction of the Empire remnants. We don't know what's going on with anything else. We have no idea.
Yeah, but we know, the First Order is going to get defeated by Ray, and and
But
so
this
I'm
is
just
also
like,
another galaxy. Like they're also going into a whole nother galaxy, not theirs. This is a whole nother fight at this point, too.
yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, Ahsoka's well done. Even though there's a big sense of urgency. Ahsoka herself says it all the time. We're running far behind. We need to catch up. But yet she lets people go away. I mean, get away a lot of times in the show. She's just in there. You won that battle. I'm like, yo, what are you doing? Like you just said, like time is running out and you're already behind. But I
Because
think
she
it's
was a very head first type of person as a
yeah.
teenager, which is what we know, and she learned like there's growth,
Yes,
obvious
that's
growth.
actually in my notes. Like, it's funny because I like the character and I followed the character since the beginning. It's funny to see her now older, and it's funny to see where she ended up
Like,
older.
dude,
And
like
then,
she's 25 years, 26, 20, like she's almost 30 years older at this point from
yeah,
when she
and
was a teenager
it's
in the
funny to
Clone
see
Wars.
her as a teenager, as Anakin's apprentice, whereas now she's a lot more wiser. She's a lot more, um, she takes her time. And then it's funny to see her whatever, her path, as opposed to how Anakin ended up. It's very interesting to see that juxtaposed, and then see how
Yes,
she handles an apprentice. So that's the very interesting part of it. I'm just
a
tired of
non-force
this
sensitive
era.
apprentice,
Hmm?
a non-force sensitive apprentice.
Yes, that's interesting. That's interesting. But I feel like
What do
now
you
that
think
you
about
mentioned,
casting?
I thought it was good. I thought
Me too.
casting was good.
No,
Um,
Sabine, I think was spot on. I
I
like
thought we was
her.
going to see we might, but I thought we was going to see Hera's son, but we probably will, unless she has him like held up at a different planet to keep him safe during the war. But yeah, it was
You know,
funny to
Freddie
see
Prinze
Chopper.
Jr. is going to have to make they can't recast Kane's character as anyone else. That's not Freddie Prinze Jr. at this point. Even if it's a voice, you can't do that.
I'm sure they would. They did it for Ahsoka. What's her name? Ashley Eckstein could
Oh,
have played
Ashley Eckstein,
Ahsoka.
yeah.
She could have played Ahsoka, but they recast her. I'm sure they will. They probably will. Because Freddie Prinze Jr., he seems like he's done with being live action acting, period. I think he's just, for the years, he just kept doing voice acting. He's just been
Well, I
chilling.
mean, Kane's dead. Like, I mean, but no, here's the difference between the two. Freddie Prinze Jr.'s voice has already been used in the Star Wars movie,
Hmm. Yeah.
Episode 9. He talked to Ray. You can't replace that now. It's already set in stone. You can't just like go back.
Do we
Like that's
know
official,
if
official canon.
Ahsoka's voice was played by Rosario Dawson or Ashley Eckstein in episode 9?
I don't know.
Because I heard that her voice was in the mix of that,
Yes,
but I don't know which voice it was. So that would be interesting
Freddie,
to know.
but his was very prominent. You heard him, so it wasn't just
Yeah, and
like
he's
mixed with
older
stuff.
now. I mean, and the character has always been that age, so it would make sense to cast him. Whereas Ahsoka, like, they cast someone older because she's
Yeah,
older.
she's a teenager and now she's older. Like Eckstein's like got a very Ashley's got a very youthful voice. Like so it works. It's not like Rosario was playing a teenage version of her. They weren't. She wasn't.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah, it could work, but I don't know. I feel like Freddie Prinze Jr. He's just been like chilling. He hasn't really done that. He was like big in what the '90s, early 2000s acting. He was in everything. Now he's just kind of been chilling for a
It's
long
his own
time.
thing. I think that's his choice though. Like he's just
Yeah, it is
a
his choice. Like him
yeah.
and Sarah Michelle Gellar, just like had a family, and they're like, we're done. They were like the biggest, hottest people in like the '90s, early 2000s, and then they had a family, and they're like, we can just make money off of voice acting, and that's what they've been doing for years,
Right.
just voice acting, and they made a living off of it. So
No,
yeah,
you're
I don't
right.
know
So now we got to tell everyone
what we're talking
the
about today.
mistake we did. So we proposed. Well, I proposed that we watch a movie that we know is bad, and we had to pick something that was just so bad that we wanted to analyze it and get our take on it because we're like, all right, Sicario was good. We talk about stuff that's good all of the time. That's boring. So we kind of went the opposite way, and we decided on one of M. Night Shyamalan's masterpieces. If
Master,
anyone's ever seen The Happening, and what a gem that is.
arguably Mark Wahlberg's best film of all time. You think it's The Departed? No, not the movie he won an Oscar for. It's The Happening, his
He won an
best
Oscar
movie.
for that?
Yeah, he won an Oscar for The Departed, or he was at least nominated.
Okay, everyone was nominated. It's not fair.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was a good movie though.
Leo, everyone, Damon.
Yeah.
All right, so anyway, we watched. So anyway, if anyone who hasn't seen the Happening, it's roughly based on a movie that came out in '08, right? '05, '08.
Yeah, it was The Departed. Wahlberg got his Oscar for.
Okay. All right.
Oh,
So
nominated. Never mind. Wait.
Happening is about this
Oh.
plants release this chemical into the air, and it makes people lose their sense of self-preservation, and they just kill themselves.
Which, on paper, is not a bad premise.
Oh, it's pretty cool.
It's just
I think the
the
screenplay, if we
execution.
wrote the actual like screenplay, like you're like, you know what, this is pretty good. This is not bad. But man, I'm telling you something right now. When that actually was acted out, I don't know who thought this was a good idea when they're saying their lines, but I'll
Bro,
have you go first before I go into this.
like I have a list. This is probably the biggest list I've made for this podcast right now of things to bring up. One of them is the acting from everybody was so over the top. I mean, everyone was talking like this. What's going on? Oh my gosh. I'm like, why is everybody talking like that? I feel like John Leguizamo was the only one not talking like that.
But
And
even then, everything just felt not real or
I know
legitimate. Like their interactions with each other was like so
it felt
like
like it
this is how
wasn't
people
a
talk to each
movie.
other.
It felt like
No,
it
it
was
felt like
like rehearsal for the
yeah, it was like
movie.
a skit. Like they were just rushing through it, like reading their lines without any kind of like tone or anything.
It was very strange. And it's funny because no shade, but um I was like, was Zoe Deschanel miscast for this movie? Or was it the directing of her acting that's the problem? Because she didn't really feel like she fit. And then when I was watching the whole movie, I was like, wait, is the directing of the acting the problem, or was she miscast? I don't know. And it's funny because I read some stuff on there and it said she's the only cast member who thinks positively of this movie. Whereas everybody else is like, oh, shouldn't have done that movie. That was a mistake in my career. She's like, oh no, it was a good movie. I'm like, huh?
So there was one thing, I don't know where I read this from, but this was like a few years ago. Just ask, I Googled why is the happening, acted and directed the way it was. Because I just thought that it was just not. It didn't seem real. It felt like no one cared. It was just
It
like
felt like it was
whatever.
trying to be a parody of all the Hitchcock movies of the back in the day.
Yeah,
I don't
it
know.
felt like a scary movie premise where everyone's like, you're making fun of something just so overtly bad, but it was actually real. Like people were trying. And what someone says, like, they were trying to put it in a point of view where everyone's in a constant state of shock, which is why in trauma, which is why they act the way they do. I'm like, I can understand that, but it was even like that before the plants started acting crazy.
Nah, yeah, and on top of that, you're right. And on top of that, the music. And I forgot who the composer was. Maybe I shouldn't say his name because I'm not trying to throw shade. But the composer, I'm like, I've heard his music in other films and it's good. But in this film, even the music was over the top. Like a character will ask a simple question and it'll be like, I'm like, what? Like, what? I'm like, what is going on here? And then I remember like,
It's like, is it really that big of a deal? Like, honestly.
and I remember they were on the train and somebody said something, but it was like a throwaway line. It had no plot driven dialogue whatsoever. And then it shows a shot of the train going across the tracks, and the music is just like I'm like, what the I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, clearly M. Night Shyamalan called the guy up. It was like, yo, this music isn't hitting it right, man. I need it bigger. I need it more. I need it more. Think satire. Think SNL. Think of an SNL skit making fun of horror movies, and I want that to be the music. Because I was like, it's so over the top. Like everything is so over the top in this movie. It doesn't make sense to me.
I don't know how to really explain it. It's so bad in the sense where you can nitpick so many things. Like, you have an idea, like, like in the feeling, like what it is and bad, but like expressing, articulating like it's not real is probably the best way to do it. I'm trying to find a way to like really articulate this, but you're watching this and it's like what Nigel said. It's like, guys, like, it does, anyone who hasn't seen this, like, it really just seems like it's like rehearsal and they're just saying whatever that they know and then they're just going with it, right? And they think it's a joke. It's like a running joke to like be so bad on purpose, but it being on purpose, like them being bad is like the concept of it. And this is not a parody. It's like them purposely throwing their acting skills away. Okay, it's funny if that's the whole premise of the movie, but since it wasn't, and it's not a parody, this is like a serious thing. Like, you're like, who thought this was a good idea to do it this way?
Yeah. So you know how Star Wars was saved in the edit? I feel like this movie, M. Night Shyamalan hired everybody, cast and the crew, and told them this is a parody, this is a joke. We're making fun of Hitchcock movies, Hitchcock horror movies, like like The Birds or whatever. We're making fun of these type of movies, a parody movie. And then in the edit, he got everything together, and then he edited the movie like it was a serious horror thriller drama, and it just doesn't fit. I'm like,
What do
if
you think of the plot? So this plot's thin, right? Like,
oh
once
yeah,
like they determine, oh, it's the plants. Maybe it's the plants doing this, right? And some crazy guy who's obsessed with hot dogs, like talking about plants. And
oh yeah,
like the conductors, right? Like, let's go back a couple steps. When they're in the town and the train estranges them, right? Like, strands them.
right,
And they're talking to the conductors, and the conductor like turns around, is like, "Are you talking to me?" Like, his attitude's like, how dare you talk to me? I'm like, where is this guy coming from? Where you, normal person, can ask an Amtrak train conductor, like,
bro. That's another thing. The way this is directed, for people who don't know, when you're behind the scenes and you're directing a film, you roll camera first, roll camera. You say sound speed, sound is speeding to the sound guy. You do all these things while the camera is rolling, and the actor's just sitting there waiting for you to say action. And then after action, you give it a second, then you do your thing. It seems like there was too many empty spaces. Like he just showed people when they were waiting for him to say action. It's like he showed them just waiting to say action, and then they did the action. Because it's like you said, he went to the train conductor, and it was so awkward how it was edited that he would ask him a question, and then it would be like a space, and then he'd be like, "Oh, the train stopped." And then he'd be like, "Oh, why are you not telling me stuff? What's going on?" And then they stop.
Do you think like so I felt like they had really good casting. Like this could have been a good movie on paper, right? And you read the screenplay. Like I genuinely believe that the screenplay was actually probably pretty good, right? At some point, and they're like, ah, you
Mhm.
know, this is not so bad.
Right.
Where do you think truly the disconnect is on this? Like because he knows how to make good movies, he's done it.
I think the disconnect is M. Night Shyamalan himself. We've had this conversation offline before where it's like he's either hot or cold, hit or miss. M. Night Shyamalan doesn't have an in between. He's either Sixth Sense or he's The Happening or The Last Airbender. He's either really really
Lady in the
good
Lake.
or really really bad. He doesn't have a middle. And so I don't know. It's almost like he phoned this directing job in. Like he didn't really put it together because the directing doesn't start and end when the actors are on set and then they leave. The directing starts as soon as you say we're going to make this film. You got to go into pre-production. You gotta okay this. You gotta okay that. You gotta okay the script. You gotta okay that, and then the directing isn't done until the film has been released because you got to do all this promo stuff. You got to okay that. You got to
And they
okay
do a
the
lot of
final
post
edit.
production stuff, right?
Yeah, you got to do all this post production stuff. I feel like this guy just didn't show up for work on this movie or something. And a lot of the mistakes he did, acting mistakes directing mistakes he did on The Last Airbender too. The Last Airbender to this day, I consider one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And I tell people this all the time. You can do a whole class, a whole film class on what not to do as a director if you watch that film. I mean, he did it in The Happening too, where his framing was so weird. He would have the camera like this. His close-ups are too close to where they're cutting off the actors' mouths and the uh the forehead of the actors. It's crazy. And so I don't know what's going on with this guy. He's either hot or cold, and he doesn't really have like I don't know. I don't know. I'm at a loss because he's not a bad director. You know, he's not a bad director. He's pretty good when he wants to be. But hold on, folks. Are we having technical issues? Oh, you're back? You're back, Zach? Oh. Hold on for a sec. We're coming right back. But yeah, like I don't know, man. It's like you can run a whole class on what not to do as a director with
Is
this
he in
movie.
movie like film schools in terms of like what not to do? Like for example, business school, right? We talk about Enron, we talk about all the things that happen catastrophically, right?
Mhm.
How are film schools operate?
So mostly, film schools are like, look at all these great films and try to emulate that. Why did this work? And why does it work for other things and stuff like that? We never really looked at bad movies and saw
Yeah.
what not to do. If I was to teach a class, I could use The Last Airbender and The Happening just on like not like, oh, this is a bad movie, but on like the strange framings that he does of cutting off the actor's mouth and forehead when he goes onto a crazy close up. I'm like, bro, pull back a
Why
little
does he
bit.
do that?
I don't know. He does that. And you pointed out to me offline, and I was like, "Yo, is he a bad director?" You was like, "No, he has good films: Sixth Sense, Signs, Glass. What was the one before that?
Break.
Unbreakable. And
Yeah,
what's the one
Unbreakable.
after that with
Well, he had the
McAvoy?
one with the he
With
had Unbreakable,
McAvoy.
but like the what was it? Split.
Split. Yeah, like he
Very well
has
done.
good movies, but he has bad ones too. After Earth, The Happening, Last Airbender. It's like when they're bad, bro. Like they're really bad.
Yeah.
So I just don't get it. And this movie is just so over the top. It's like, bro, what are we doing here? I don't know, man. Like, what do you
So
think,
I
man?
think his last, I think Split really brought him back to the limelight in terms of okay, he's good, he can bring it back. He did two good movies, Split, and what was the one after that?
Glass?
Glass, fantastic,
Right.
right?
I
Plus
mean, the
having
third
James
act of
McAvoy in
Glass
there
was a
helps.
little but
But
overall it
it's
was good.
because they're bringing in other movies too, Unbreakable and all that stuff, and you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I thought it
You
was good
know,
overall, especially Split, man.
Split
Split
was
was great.
fantastic.
Yeah.
James McAvoy, dude, like, man,
Phenom, bro.
good actor.
Phenom. And it was a good premise too. Like M. Night has good premises. It's just his executions
You know
be
what he needs to do? He needs to do a Marvel movie. He needs to do like a Doctor Strange Marvel movie type of thing, and I'm sure that would be weird.
bro, then you'd have Doctor Strange this close. Or his close ups, bro. We need to go to the multiverse. Like
Wouldn't that be cool though? Have like a spin like that?
yeah, no, I wouldn't.
Uh,
I think I had enough of bad
so I'll
Marvel
tell you what,
movies.
guys. The reason so happening so bad, we can't talk about it anymore because it's so bad. Like, there's nothing. I mean, I had a whole notebook of notes too, and I'm like, because Heather was like trying to talk to me and watch it. I'm like, Heather, I spent $3 over at this so I can watch it. I gotta watch this, even if I'd rather be in a POW camp right now. All right, like it's just
I mean, we did talk about how the script might have been good, but bro, I have some quotes in my notes. Like one of the soldiers, someone shoots themselves, and one of the soldiers like cheese and crackers. It's like, are you
oh
serious?
yeah, it's Kendall Roy's character. What's his name? Who's
I was
plays
like,
Kendall Roy?
are you serious? And then there's another line. Where did I put it? Oh, the amount of times the happening set. I mean, happening is said on screen. You can make a drinking game out of it, bro. It's like crazy. I think it was Mark Wahlberg who had the most ridiculous line where he said, "Well, I don't know why this is happening. If it's happening, then it's happening, and it's happening." And I was like, "Bro, stop saying happening." Like, like this is like script writing 101. Don't keep repeating the same word
And it just
over and
stops.
over.
Like it just randomly, like the plants just stop doing it to people. It's like no
I
rhyme and
know.
reason. It's like nothing you can do can prevent this. I think part of the reason why I like signs the most is because people fight back. Like there's the resolution is because of you and you got to figure it out. There's
Hmm.
nothing you can do with the happening. And there's no
No.
explanation why the plan stopped doing it and then moved to somewhere else and do it.
Well, remember the end of the movie, the guy gives off a um a theory that it was a test because it only happened in the northeast region. It was like, I believe it was a test to see how effective it would work. And it was a warning that the plants are saying, hey, there's something worse to come. And then you see the end where it's like in France, all that happens.
Yeah.
And I actually left some notes because my directing hat came on. I left some notes of how I would have re-edited the end. Like I would have switched the scenes at the end to have the newscast second to last about oh, what do you think? Why did it only happen in the Northeast region? And then I would have had that audio of him explaining what it was, overlap the footage of what happens in France. That way you get this like, oh snap, and before I even said all that, they show her checking her pregnancy test. He walks over to her, they have a hug. I would have cut that scene where it shows like she's excited because she knows she's pregnant. I just would have left it open ended where she looks at the pregnancy test. We don't know if she's happy. And then it cuts to the news broadcasting, and then the news broadcasting
Yeah, because you don't want to,
overlays.
because having, they shouldn't insinuate that they're still together. That's whack because she cheated on him.
Yeah, In my
We
notes,
just
I
had
have,
tiramisu. You gotta leave me alone.
dude, that's another line. That's another line that I'm like, what? The way it was delivered, it was like, we only had tiramisu. Oh my gosh. And I'm like, yo, people are literally dying right now. You're like, oh my gosh, we had tiramisu. Like, are you serious right now? And then I have my notes like the infidelities subplot is like a throwaway because things will be
Yeah, it's like
happening.
mentioned, and then he's like,
It's
he
like
just
mentioned
looks at
like,
her with her mouth, with his mouth
yeah,
agape, like, oh.
you cheated on me? I was like, and then it's like they'll have random lines about the
And they'll
infidelity
bring it
throughout the
up
movie.
randomly for no
Yeah.
reason. Like they're walking in the, and they're walking on the road, and he's like, so, and I'm like, oh, this is the time you're gonna bring it up now.
It's like the most random times that they bring up the relationship and then they'll throw it away and something will happen. I'm like, what? There's no
What do you think about
resolution.
the kids getting shot by the shotgun?
Oh, that was wild. That was wild. I felt like it was, I don't know if that was earned because it kind of just, I'm going to say it kind of just happened. You know, it was just very, he's like, sir, please, can you help us out? You know,
You know what they should have done? They should have done like The Happening, where it's a bunch of like smaller stories all happens without any one explanation, and then it's like one big thing where it's like the plants doing it to people. You get what I'm
yeah, if
saying?
this
Like
was made
some
today,
guy shooting a kid or a
yeah,
robbery or whatever it is, or like little tiny like subplots, like all building up to like, okay, it's because of the plants, instead of them
I
running away
guarantee if they
from.
did it today, it would have been like a limited series or a mini series or something like that. It would have been a show. It wouldn't have been a
Yeah,
movie,
yeah.
and it would have been exactly what you're describing now. It would have been odd, like short episode, short stories or whatever, and it turns out
Max
they're
had a
all
show like
connected.
that of like
Yeah,
the end of the world, where each show was like an end of the world premise, where you had aliens in one, you had like crazy stuff in another. It was like a Twilight Zone type of thing, and they were all unrelated to each other. But it was like something like that. I forget who made
uh,
it, but I watched it, and yeah, something like that. That would be cool. It'd be like a Twilight Zone type of thing.
yeah. I mean, I don't, if they were to come back to this, they'd probably do that way to what you're describing. But I feel like the happening is something no one wants to touch anymore, despite it being a good premise. You know, because it was just so weird. And then characters were just doing dumb things. Like, it made no sense. Like, first of all, they figure out it's from the plants and it's because of the size of their group, so they split up. Then they hear the one group killing
Start
themselves
shooting
with the
themselves.
gun,
Yeah,
and then Zoe Deschanel's character and the other and another chick are like, "We gotta do something! Oh my gosh, we're not gonna be the assholes who don't do anything." I'm like, you literally learn that it's airborne. They've known that the whole movie, even when they didn't know it was the plants, they knew it was airborne. So you're telling me you want to go over there and help people when all you're going to do is probably kill them or kill yourself? It's airborne, you morons. What are you talking about? You can't escape that. It's like during the pandemic. I'm not trying to get political, but people kept saying it's airborne. I'm like, it's not airborne. It's droplet. If it was airborne, we'd all be effed. Like no one would survive. No one would. Everybody would be infected. That's what
it's like
airborne means.
this
Like,
is like it's got a Bird Box type of vibe. Like I feel like Bird
yeah,
Box emulated this in terms of this is how it could be successful and what they were trying to go with.
right.
That's just me.
I mean, but Bird Box did it better because this movie was made no sense, and I'm like, are you that dumb that you don't realize they're dead? Doesn't matter what you do, it's airborne. They're dead. So unless you want to go over there, keep running. And then that whole scene where he's talking to the fake plant in the house. So I'm talking to a fake plant. I didn't realize that. And I'm like, see, this is what I'm talking about. This movie has balancing issues where it doesn't know if it wants to be serious or wants to be a joke. And so the audience, the whole time you're watching this movie, you don't know what it wants to be because it doesn't know what it wants to be. Is it a parody? Is it serious? Like that one line where I keep saying this last name wrong.
John Leguizamo, the
Leguizamo.
Papa John's narrator.
John Leguizamo. Oh yeah, he has to get his wife. He's like, I gotta leave with these
And then they
people.
die. And you see
Yeah,
him like they adopted his kids so much, like, oh. I guess they died.
But that scene where he's like, I gotta go, and she's like, we'll take care of your daughter. He's like, don't take my daughter's hand unless you mean it. I'm like, yo, that was a good that was a good line and that was a good delivery. But the rest of the movie is so unbalanced. It's like,
It
oh,
doesn't fit.
it
It
doesn't
doesn't
fit.
fit. You're like, what is this?
It doesn't
Now
because the
this
whole
is when you're gonna
time,
bring it up?
yeah, because the whole time he's acting. His acting is like he's like the best friend who's a bumbling guy who let his friend's wife know she cheated on him, and it's like it's so unbalanced. And then all of a sudden he's serious. Like what is going on with this movie?
Yeah,
Like don't
yeah.
get it, man.
There's a lot of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Like I heard M Night Shyamalan's show is kind of wonky too. I don't.
It is. It's confusing, but at least it's good, I guess. It's not got that issue.
It's just like what are you doing, guy? Like he's so hot and cold. You don't. It's like if you work with him, it's a gamble, man. You just don't know where it's gonna go. Is this gonna be like one of the films you're like, I'm glad I worked on this, or it's gonna be like, oh yeah, I worked on that film. It's so strange. I don't get it. I don't know of any director that's like that too, where it's just like it's either really good or really, really bad. And they keep going back and forth. And they
Guy
keep going back.
Ritchie.
He said Guy Ritchie? No, I like his films, man. Except for Aladdin. But I like his films. I don't know. He has a certain style to him. And they're pretty much the same kind of movies. Except for Aladdin. But they're all pretty Aladdin was like a weird, like who would have thought to hire Guy Ritchie for Aladdin? That was a very strange like hiring
Maybe if it
process.
was Mortal Kombat or something, you put Guy Ritchie in there.
I'm not saying the movie was bad because of Guy Ritchie. All the live actions are pretty much bad. I'm just saying, who would have thought like, yo, we should make a live action of Aladdin? Who should we get? Guy Ritchie, yo. I just saw this movie called Snatch. He'd be perfect. It's like, what? That doesn't. One of these things is not like the other, man. Like, if you look at that guy's
All right, so
resume,
I just Googled worst directors of all time. Guesses in here that you wouldn't, and they're around right now. They still do movies.
there's this one guy who for the longest time in the early 2000s was kept directing bad fantasy blockbuster movies. And I can't remember his name because he's European. It's like a crazy name. What's his name? Jason
Lucifer
Statham?
Valentine.
Who?
Lucifer Valentine.
No, and
Dude, that's his name. Is Lucifer.
who would name their child? That's got to be a fake name.
He is known for the slow torture puke chamber, slaughtered vomit dolls, and black metal veins.
Wow.
All right,
Are
guess
you
who's
looking
number
on
two?
IMDb?
Yeah, Michael Bay is number two.
On IMDb,
Yeah.
number Michael Bay's pretty. I know people are gonna kill me, but pretty. Oh, Yule Bowl. That's what I'm thinking of. UWE Bowl. He just kept directing bad fantasy movie after bad fantasy movie.
Guess who's also on here? George Lucas. I don't agree with that
I don't agree with that either.
because American Graffiti is fantastic.
I don't agree with Eli Roth. What? No, he's not that bad. Michael Bay, Zach Braff. I'm looking at it.
And Night Shyamalan's on here. He's number 14. Guillermo del Toro? What?
Okay, who made this list? Maybe they're going by ticket sales, not actual like directing techniques.
It made by Pryan 96, some random dude. You put Rob
Yeah.
Zombie in here.
They put Ben Affleck. Okay, you're smoking. You're smoking.
Okay. All right. Anyway, so let's just do Ranker, right?
Right.
Yule Balls to Jason Friedberg and Aaron Seltzer. Steven Seagal. Jesus. Madonna.
Even Seagal.
All right. Michael Bay is on this list too. There's a lot of people who have Michael Bay on the list. All right. Name some good Michael Bay movies. Don't say the first Transformers because that's a cop out.
Armageddon. Tell me that ain't. Tell me that isn't like an early 2000s gem of a movie. It has all the tropes, but it all works. It all works, man.
Yeah,
The
no,
music and everything, the
yeah, it's fucking
grand
Aerosmith. Yeah, Aerosmith's
the grand
doing
directing
their thing.
techniques.
Yeah. All right,
Great movie.
so
Great movie. Um the movie with Jim from John Krasinski. Soldiers of Benghazi. Secret 13 soldiers or Secret Soldiers of
13
Benghazi.
hours.
13 hours. 13 hours. That's it right there. Good movie.
He did the.
No one
Oh,
watched it.
these are producers. Let's look at him as director.
Yeah, great movie that no one watched because of what was going on at the time with Hillary Clinton and everything like that. But great movie, man. Great movie.
That is a good movie. He was in the Rock. He did the Rock, by the way.
Oh yeah,
Sean
classic.
Connery, Nicolas Cage, Ed Harris. Good movie.
Welcome to the Rock. Classic, classic, man.
Love that movie. That's a
I
good
love
movie.
that movie.
Okay, that's a good movie. All right, yeah. So he shouldn't be on this list.
No, no, Lucifer Valentine. Oh my dear lord. Who names their child? I want to look up this guy's biography and be like, yo, did your parents really name you Lucifer Valentine? Or is that just a pseudonym? Because there is like a name. Let's just call it John Doe.
It
There's a
has it
name.
called Vomit Gore Trilogy. Oh, it's an anonymous and emblematic figure of extreme cinema. They don't know what his real name
Oh
is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because there's a name. I'll just call it John Doe because I don't remember the name. But there's a name that directors use when they don't want to be identified as the director of that movie
It's a
because
pen
of
name.
yeah,
Yeah,
because of studio interference. So they'll just use every director uses that same name. So I forgot what the name was. I should Google that. But there's a name that every director used. They're like, okay, this movie's out of my hands. I'm just going to use this name now. But it's hard to do nowadays because of social media and stuff like that, people know who's directing what now from
yeah,
like
yeah.
start to finish. So you can't really do that anymore, but they used to use that name all the time. But yeah, you gotta check that out. But
Donnie Fingelberg.
how do you think?
That's the name.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
that's the name. M Night Shyamalan should have put that on. Use that name for his movie. Remember with Split before it came out, he was like keeping it so secret that he was the director, so they could sell the movie. It's like the PR team was like, "Yo, do not say that you're part of this movie.
change your name.
Do
M
not
Shop.
put that." Because before, back in the day, they used to say another M Night Shyamalan directed movie, and then like when Split came out, he was in hiatus for a while. Then Split came out, and it was like, "Don't say anything, bro. Don't say
Hey,
that."
it really helped. All right, so here, let's look at his IMDb. I want to see what's coming up with him.
Let's check it out. I mean, he's not a bad guy, but his uh his
Dude,
movies,
plus
man.
he's from Philly, bro. You know, like, come on.
Yeah, he
Love him.
directs everything in Philly, man.
Everything's in Philly. Yeah.
Everything.
All
Uh,
right, upcoming.
Trap
He's got
in
a
pre-production.
he's a producer in most he's only a producer in um
I gotta check out Old. I
all right,
forgot he
so he has a
directed that.
thing called Trap,
Yep,
Labor of Love, and an Untitled Project.
yep.
Trap is supposed to be coming out next year at this time.
Yep.
He's writing and directing, so look out for that.
He
Labor of Love.
he usually writes and directs.
Labor of Love, same thing.
Yeah,
Kind of
he's a
curious
writer
what that's going to
director.
be.
Yeah, he's a writer director. He's not like he usually
A
doesn't.
widower embarks on a cross country trip on foot to prove his love for his late wife. That's what Labor of Love has. And Trap has nothing, no description.
Well, it's in pre-production, so maybe that's why. I mean, looking at the
All
scores of
right,
his
so
movies,
Trap
they're bad,
is
bro.
there's nothing about it.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't know he directed Andrew Day's Rise Up music video. That's interesting.
Hmm.
But I did want to see old. I mean, looking at the ratings off IMDb, full disclosure, looking at his ratings, they're not too good for his movies if you just go down the list.
Science is a 6.8. That's way better than that.
I mean, Sixth Sense is 8.2. I feel like that's his peak. And then it just goes steadily down from there. I mean, it goes back up after Split. Split is 7.3. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I would really like to see some PR, like some interviews from him about his choices in the happening, but I don't see that happening. And here, and here I
Did you
keep
do that
saying
on
happening.
purpose?
I
What'd you
don't
think
see
of The
that.
Village? I like The Village. I know
I still
you
haven't
saw
seen
the
it.
end, but you
The
got to watch the whole thing.
Yeah, I gotta watch the whole thing. I still haven't seen the whole thing. But I mean, everything I've seen of M. Night Shyamalan, I've liked, except for The Last Airbender, The Happening. Um, I was kind of indifferent of Knock at the Cabin, his latest thing that came out, where it was Dave Bautista and him and his group of people show up at this gay couple's door, and he's like, "Y'all have to kill," because it's the couple and their daughter. He's like, "One of you has to die, or the whole world dies." And I was kind of indifferent about it. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't as memorable. I don't know.
That's a show.
It was a movie that came out in theaters recently, and it was on Peacock.
What is it called?
Knock at the Cabin with
Oh,
Dave
you know what
Bautista.
was not too bad? Old wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I still got to see that, man.
That was very interesting because they were like stranded in Ireland and everyone was just aging fast. Well, the kids were aging fast.
Hmm. Yeah, I gotta check that out. That's still on my list,
Wayward
but
Pines. I gotta watch that.
yeah, he directed an episode of that. But I mean, what else can we say about the happening? It was not happening at the happening. That's all I
Yeah,
gotta say.
I think we can just sum it up with that.
I mean, I have a few things on the list, but they're pretty unnecessary. I mean, I even did a nitpick thing was like when they were in the field running towards the house, why didn't they just take the truck? Like he checked the
It's like a
truck.
standard horror movie where they're running away from the guy with the chainsaw and there's this car with the keys in it and they're like, you know what? Let's just keep running.
Yeah, like the keys were in there, the radio was on, and I was like, why didn't they just take the truck? It's not like it's not like the cars are evil. and they
Right.
and they had to run across the I don't know. It was just very weird choices.
Yeah.
Like the characters were so stupid in the movie, and they were just saying dumb things, and everything was just so over the top. Like, oh my gosh, and everybody talk like this, and what's happening? I feel like there's so
Yeah.
many excuses of why this movie is bad. Oh, it's supposed to be that way. It's a
Mm-hmm.
parody. Oh, they're in shock. I'm like,
Yeah.
but if you have,
Whack.
it's like if I said it before, if your audience has to keep justifying your bad choices, then they're just bad choices. Like we shouldn't have to
That's a
do all
fortune
this.
cookie right there.
Like we shouldn't have to keep justifying your choices
Right.
for a film. We should just be like,
100%.
oh, the film explained that. This in this universe you can't do that. Da, 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 whatever. It's just bad, bro, and the movie's
Yeah.
just bad. So, yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Nothing.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
I'm curious what everyone else's take is. Whoever's listening, give us your take on the happening.
Yeah,
Looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
looking forward to it, but I don't think it's going to change our minds if you say otherwise. But
Well,
so, my
definitely not.
nomads, this was another good one. I hope you learned some things about what not to do. So, be creative. Peace.